and monotheism. So in what sense is God unknowable? Another axiom of religious philosophy is that God is unknowable. As St. Augustine said, a God understood is no God at all. The mystical God is unknowable in this sense. He shatters the ordinary canons of knowledge. Being infinite, he is discontinuous with rational categories, the negation of human attributes. He is Deus absconditus, a hidden God. To know him, one must pierce the veil that separates the finite from the infinite. But the incognito of God has an entirely different meaning in the Bible. An anthropomorphic God is unknowable, not because he confounds human categories, but because he can simply refuse to disclose himself. No man by searching can find out God. Conversely, when God chooses to make himself known, he does so in the categories of everyday experience. A good example, Charbonneau notes, is the passage usually cited in support of the mystical view. Now this is interesting. My thoughts are not your thoughts, and neither are my ways your ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. This passage by no means asserts a disjunction between the divine and human categories of thought, however. Let's be very careful here. On the contrary, the prophet is in the act of proclaiming the ways and thoughts of God without recourse to paradox, mystical symbolism, or a technical vocabulary. Exactly the problem of the Trinity. It's built on all three of those: paradox, mystical symbolism, and a technical vocabulary. The biblical God has recourse to nothing like this. He doesn't need it. The Bible has its own way of preserving the mystery of God. Oh, this is remarkable how he puts this too. Really, really fun to see. Where God is anthropomorphic, there is mystery. Not because he violates human reason, but because he holds the initiative. Whereas inanimate objects can be known at the initiative of the inquirer, the knowledge of God is like the knowledge of another person. The initiative rests with God. Unless he chooses to make himself known through word or deed, no amount of prying can succeed in making his acquaintance. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. Proverbs 1:28. See, in the Bible, one acknowledges the mystery of God by refusing to jump to conclusions about him. For example, one does not assume prematurely that God cannot be anthropomorphic. Rather, one inquires without prejudging the case whether, in fact, he is anthropomorphic. In other words, knowledge of the biblical God is absolutely a posteriori. The prophet does not presume to deduce the attributes of God de jure. He proclaims the character of God on the basis of his purposes and mighty acts. See, the mystery of an anthropomorphic God is guaranteed, not because he overturns all human categories, but because he can confound all human expectation. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder, and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall nowise believe, even if one declare it unto you. Acts 13:41. Not only does anthropomorphism preserve the mystery of God, it also preserves the rationality of man. For the mystic, the divine truth always fractures and it contorts the language of everyday speech. It must be expressed as esoteric enigmas and paradoxes. Yeah, that's a perfect description of the Trinity, isn't it? You see how far off biblical, in philosophical understanding, the Trinity is from the true Bible God. It's fascinating. Moving on to page 198. In Israel, where God is anthropomorphic, there is but a single universe of discourse. There's just one way of discourse between man and God, and it is capable of conveying things divine as well as things human. Consequently, when God does choose to make himself known, he does so unambiguously. There's no mistake here. There's no maybe. There's no question. No matter how unexpected, his words are perfectly intelligible. We can understand what he is saying. I did not speak in secret in a land of darkness. I did not say to the offspring of Jacob, seek me in chaos. I, the Lord, speak the truth. I declare what is right. Isaiah 45:19. So, if rational intelligibility is desirous, the God of Israel has the better of the argument. So in what sense is God invisible then? There's on one point, both the mystic and the prophet seem to agree. Both speak of God as invisible. However, though, their agreement is only a surface agreement. It's only apparent. It dissolves in the light of the distinction between de jure and de facto. For the mystic, God so completely transcends the spatio-temporal world that the finite categories of seeing and hearing and touching, they just don't apply. Such a God is invisible in principle. However, when we look at the biblical God, the invisible is simply a matter of tactics. De facto, men seldom do see God. Upon occasion, however, he does show himself to Moses, to the elders of Israel, to Isaiah. St. John quite consistently refers to that which was from the beginning, which we have seen, which we have heard and seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon and touched with our hands concerning the word of life. That's 1 John 1:1. That is, God retains the freedom to show himself, or he can decide not to. He can withhold his face. Rudolf Bultmann observes, God is not invisible to the senses as a matter of principle. Indeed, Hebrew has no word for invisible. God is invisible because he wills to be invisible. So, we may well think twice before assuming that just because he has not shown himself to us, that he is invisible by nature. Very powerful here. In what sense is God timeless or changeless? Now this is also interesting. See, this is another meaning of infinite, technically. Something beyond the infinite. That is, categories of space and time. The mystic's God is infinite in this sense. For him, change is a mark of imperfection. For if a thing is perfect and then undergoes change, it must lose its perfection. Conversely, if it is not yet perfect, then no matter how greatly it may improve, it can never match the perfection of an object which has been perfect always. So here's the conclusion of the mystic. If God is perfect, he must be altogether beyond the realm of change and becoming. He is timeless.